resonates. I have a couple of questions that come from something in the chapter of the Eternal Now. And so what I would like to do is read you one thing and then see if you can elaborate. It's just a sentence. See if you can elaborate on what you wrote and what you meant by it.
This is something I wrote?
That you wrote, yes. So, yeah, yes. I wouldn't have dreamed. It says right here, Rupert Spira.
I remember when Francis, he was doing sorry to interrupt you, Len. When Francis was, he was doing a retreat at my home in Shropshire, and I had the manuscript of The Transparency of Things, which was the first book that I wrote, and I was showing it to him, and he was going through it, and we were going through it, and he was making various suggestions of things that could be changed or things that could be added or something like that. And at one point he said, I'm not trying to interfere with what you've written or change it. He said, I'm just wanting to make sure that you don't put anything into print that you later regret. So I'm a little nervous about what you're going to write.
Hopefully this will not be regrettable.
Hopefully.
So the first question comes from, you were talking about the eternal now and the infinite here. And you say there's no span of time that separates our birth from our death other than the thought that thinks it. I don't quite get that, other than the thought that thinks it. Can you elaborate a little bit?
The thought that thinks it, I mean, other than our belief that there is a span of time.
Okay, because you also said the birth and death of our body takes place at the same time and place, the eternal now and the infinite here. And then that other sentence came after it.
Yes.
So it just, when you say the thought that thinks it,
I mean the belief about it.
The belief about it.
Yes, the thought of it.
Okay.
In other words, we believe that time exists. We believe that to use this topic, we believe that our bodies were born at one particular moment in time, and that our bodies die at another particular moment in time, and that we believe that there is something called time that separates these two moments.
Yeah.
And what I'm suggesting there is that time only exists, or seems to exist, as that belief, that it doesn't actually exist in reality, which means in experience.
That I can get, but what the birth and death taking place at the same time, and I understand if we go to the eternal now, then it fits in, but it's something about that, it's just not clear.
Okay, well let's not take birth and death, let's take something closer to home. Let's start with this experience. Would you agree that this experience is taking place now?
Yes.
And let's take breakfast this morning. When you were experiencing breakfast this morning, would you agree that it was taking place now?
Yes.
Okay, now, how many nows, so those are two nows how many nows have there been in the intervening time?
Just one. Just now. Just
now. Is there a difference, for instance, between this now and this now?
No.
Did the first now move slowly for 5 seconds along a line of time? And
No.
Is your experience of now moving? Is your current experience of now, is it moving through time?
No, it's right now.
Or is the idea of time appearing now?
Well, the idea of time, I mean, time is an idea, so
yes. What I'm trying to show is that we don't actually experience a line of time called now. We do experience what we call now. And we've actually only ever experienced one now in our life, which you acknowledge. It's always this now, and we have no experience that this now is moving through time. We have an idea that the present moment is a moment that is moving along a line of time, but that's not actually our experience. Our experience is that this now is not a moment in a line of time. It is this now is more like we could call it a space. It is, and it's not going anywhere. It is the space in which experience appears, but that space is not going anywhere. It's the space of now in which every experience appears, the birth of your body and its disappearance. It's the mind spreads out eternity and makes it appear as time.
So then would you say that, I mean, are we basically all dead already? I mean, you know, if it happens at the same, because, you know, let's see, the birth and death of our body takes place at the same time. So in a certain way, I mean, it almost suggests, and maybe it doesn't, but it almost suggests that that there's a compression of...
Yes, but then you see, you're trying to understand eternity with your mind.
Yeah.
And your mind is constructed to experience in 4 dimensions. 1 dimension of time and 3 dimensions of space. Therefore, whatever your mind looks at or tries to understand, it will look at it through the prism of its 4-dimensional structure.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore it will impose that structure, those limitations, on whatever it experiences. So you are now looking at eternity through the prism of your 4-dimensional mind and trying to see eternity as it is. You can never see eternity as it is with your mind, because your mind imposes its own 4-dimensional structure on whatever it experiences.
So, does that mean that I suppose the thing that is sort of unclear is because there's one, you may not have said what I'm about to say, but there's one way of seeing this, which is everything, you know, has happened really. If there's no time, then in a certain way, from the I don't know, perspective is the right word, but from pure awareness's point of view, then everything has already taken place because there is no time.
But you see, from pure awareness's point of view, there are no things to take place.
To take place, okay.
It's only from the mind's point of view that there are things that take place.
Okay.
So we cannot superimpose the limitations of our own mind, in this case the belief in time and objects, and think that they pertain to consciousness. We cannot say from consciousness's point of view everything. It's only from the mind's point of view that everything.
Yeah.
Dot, dot.
Okay, let's move on to number 2. Which is,
but I just want to say something about that, because I said that you're trying to understand eternity with your mind, and the mind can never understand the eternal because it imposes its own limitations. But I just wanted to say something about that. But nevertheless, there is a place where eternity and time intersect. In other words, there is a meeting, a place where consciousness and mind intersect, and it's called now. So now, from the point of view of the mind, seems to be a moment in time, but from the point of view of awareness, it is eternity. So that is why the now is a portal for the mind through which it has access to its own eternity.
but then another part of that is that the intuition, there's an intuitive sense that there's something there in that statement that you wrote about. So it's not that it's rejected outright, because intuitively,
yes,
I'm asking the question because I feel that there's something in there.
Yes.
And so how does intuition fit into this kind of exploration?
Well, intuition is knowledge of reality. This is one way we could define intuition. That intuition is knowledge of reality filtering in to the finite mind. Let me give you an example. That how many people here, this really only applies to those of us that are over 50, which is most of us. How many here have had the feeling that as I get older, I really don't feel that I get any older? Well, I should say, how many people over 50 have not felt that? That is an intuition. So normally when we say, you know, when someone 75 years old, it's your grandmother's birthday, and she says, I really don't feel that I'm getting any, I feel I'm getting younger every day or something. That kind of comment tends to be dismissed as, oh, that's very sweet, Granny. You know, actually, you're aging. But
Sweet Granny.
Yeah, so it tends to be just dismissed. But actually, Granny is spot on. Because she's talking about her internal experience, and her grandchildren are looking at her from the outside and limiting her to her body. So they see she gets frailer and frailer, therefore she's aging. But Granny on the inside, as she gets older, as she seems to get older, the structure of her life, the clarity of her mind, her memory, her body, begins to fall away from her. And as that does so, her essential being begins to shine more brightly in her experience. So as there is this falling away of the external elements of her experience, her internal being, and she becomes, it doesn't always happen as people age, but in this case it does, that she becomes more and more, less and less identified with all the parts of her that are her memory, her everything that is falling away, and more identified with her essential being. And because of that, she feels, I'm not aging. In fact, compared to the age that I used to feel that I was, I feel I'm getting younger. So when she says to her grandchildren, I feel I get younger every day, that is an intuition of reality. Her grandchildren dismiss it as some, just as right. Sweet
Granny rambling.
But that is an intuition. It is knowledge of her real being filtering into her mind and being expressed in the language of her everyday mind. But it expresses an intuition, which means it expresses something that is she's in touch with reality, the reality of her essential being.
My wife will love that.